How's it going, guys? It's the Pixelated Pumpkin, and in today's video, I'll be giving you an early preview of the Home Depot Halloween 2024 animatronic lineup. Now, we have a lot of brand new animatronics this year, and I'm curious to see if they're good or bad, so let's find out. Our first prop we're looking at is the 12-foot skeleton's best friend, being the 5-foot-tall, 7-foot-wide Skelly's dog. Now, I think this is a great companion piece to the 12-foot skeleton, and it retails for $200, which is a bit steep for a static, but this is basically the biggest skeleton dog prop we have ever seen. I mean, this thing is only a foot shorter than I am, and remember, it's a dog. And again, it's 7 feet wide as well, so this thing is just going to be massive in person, I'm sure. It does come with the digital eyes, of course, and something new they're doing this year is offering interchangeable styles for the digital eyes, which I think is certainly welcome. They are screens after all, so it's about time they let you change up what's actually on them. As for the design of the dog, it's obviously pretty cute looking rather than scary, which I have no problem with whatsoever. The only part about this guy's design that throws me for a little bit of a loop here are the ears. I mean, skeletal ears don't make much sense, and they kind of look a little bit strange here, but I think he would look much worse without them, so I guess I can't complain too much. Anyways, that's it for Skelly's dog, and surely to be pretty huge in person. For our next prop, I'll keep it super brief, but you obviously recognize this guy as the 12-foot skeleton. There's just some new additions they've added to this guy this year that I thought would be worthy of talking about. Anyways, obviously is same thing for the Skelly's dog. He does have those interchangeable styles for the digital eyes, which I think is a much welcome addition, as well as there being a brand new servo variant of the 12-foot skeleton this year as an online only, unfortunately, and that one will be retailing for $380, while the standard no animation one retails for $300. There's also a new costume to go along with the 12-foot skeleton this year. This one kind of makes her, I guess him, I mean, it doesn't have a gender, it's a skeleton, it could go both ways. A emo girl, I guess you could say, a little bit. I think this is a fun costume here for sure. And I'm positive they'll keep making these costumes for this guy for years to come. The last thing I want to talk about pertaining to the 12-foot skeleton is his new face, which is an online only, unfortunately, but for $80 you could get a scary head for the 12-foot skeleton, which I definitely prefer. I think $80 is pretty steep though, because this whole prop costs $300 alone, so spending $80 on a head is a little bit crazy in my opinion, but it does have a light in the mouth, which is pretty cool. So I think it's pretty neat that the 12-foot skeleton will be looking a little bit more scary this Halloween, at least in some people's yards. Anyways, that's all I have to say about the 12-foot skeleton's new addition, so let's move on to the new animatronics. Unfortunately, for our next animatronic, I only have photos I'm able to show you right now, but in the webinar Home Depot did invite me to, I was able to see this guy's animation, so of course I'll let you know what he does. Anyways, this is Captaincus, finally a human pirate prop. I don't think we've ever seen this before. Anyways, this guy is honestly phenomenal. This one feels like a Disney quality prop right here. I'd honestly wouldn't be surprised if I saw this thing of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland or something. This guy is phenomenal. He is, of course, a servo animatronic, so he's going to have that blinking plus the mouth movement. And the cool thing about one of his eyes is, you could see where he got slashed, that is indeed a glass eye with a skull and crossbones on it. How cool is that little detail right there? Besides the head movement, mouth movement, eye movement, and blinking, I believe he also raises his sword and kind of tilts from side to side a little bit. And another great part about this guy, he's $250. Now that is a pretty big price for a Halloween animatronic, but I think it is most certainly worth it here compared to many other retailers. You're not going to get this quality of a prop for typically anything less than $300, so $250 is not a bad asking price at all. Overall, Captaincus is awesome. I think the attention to detail is awesome, and the lifelikeness of this guy is certainly not something to scoff at. Overall, Captaincus is sure to be a fan favorite this year. I know he's already one of my favorites from Home Depot for sure, and I cannot wait to see this guy in person. Our next animatronic, once again, only has photos, but anyways, here is Nosferatu, or as Home Depot likes to call him, the Victorian vampire, but come on, this is literally Nosferatu right here. And honestly, I'm not sure why they didn't just call him Nosferatu. Nosferatu is in the public domain. That original 1920s movie is all public domain, so they could have easily just called this guy Nosferatu, but whatever. Anyways, I think this is a pretty decent animatronic. All he does is he has mouth movement and he moves from side to side. I think he's 8 feet tall, basically like the boogeyman from Home Depot last year. I think this is just okay though. Definitely not their best offering, but certainly not their worst either. I do like the face a lot. It's really realistic. However, I feel like most of the props that don't have any servo movement in the head would honestly benefit from them a lot. I'm sure it will jack up the price quite a bit, and Home Depot does like to have a wide variety of only $200 props, which I definitely understand. I think the cheaper the props price, the better for most instances, but I think it really would have been cool to have some servo movement on this guy. Regardless, once again, I think this guy is just okay. Definitely not a bad prop, definitely not their best either. Our next animatronic is Witch Bobby Strings. Alright, well, she's actually not called Bobby Strings. She's just called Marionette Witch. So obviously we have another prop that's very, very similar to Bobby Strings from Spirit Halloween. And that's not to say this thing is ripping it off or anything. They're both being released the same year. I'm assuming they're both made by probably Seasonal Visions, I want to say. So really nobody's ripping each other off here. It's more like Seasonal Visions just did the same concept for 2 companies this year. Anyways, I have to say this thing is just fine. For $100, I really don't feel like it's all that bad. It's a 6-foot prop, so it's pretty big, but the witch itself, I imagine, is only going to be around 3, not even, maybe even 2.5 feet tall on the actual thing. The animation is just where she raises her arms up and down along with her legs, and I believe her mouth moves as well. So that's what you could expect from Bobby Strings this year if you were wondering on his end. And speaking of Bobby Strings, I definitely think he's better than this for sure. Anyways, I have to say this is just fine. Again, for an $100 prop, it's not too bad. Here is our first licensed prop being Chucky from Child's Play, and hands down, this is the best Chucky animatronic we have ever received. Obviously, this is another one to utilize those servos with the eyes here, as well as the blinking, which makes this guy look so realistic, and honestly, really scary. I absolutely love Chucky as a character. He's both funny and scary at the same time, and I absolutely love that little smile the prop does. That is so sinister and so creepy. I love it. I think they nailed this guy straight from the movie really well here. Obviously, if you just want a straight up good guys doll, just go get a static one from Trick or Treat Studios. That's probably the most accurate you could get to the movie. But if you want an animatronic, this is absolutely the one to go with. I think they nailed this thing perfectly here. There's really no way you can make a better Chucky animatronic than this guy right here. I also like how he has the knife in hand. That's another cool thing for sure. And for only $200, that's right, it's a 3-foot prop for $200, but I mean, look at it. Come on, you cannot get better than this. I think $200 is a fair price for this guy for sure. And he will be a must-have for any fan of the movie, or really any fan of horror in general. Our next animatronic is Jack of Spades. Now, this guy is just an awesome, badass, mafioso, mobster skeleton. And I have to say, I am super happy with what this guy does for his animation, because he actually lifts the drink he's holding to his mouth. How cool is that? What an actual badass. The cigar and drink in one hand, his cards in the other. This guy is probably one of the coolest skeletons you will ever see. He could also be displayed sitting up or down. He's $150, only $150 for this guy. That's right, what a fantastic price. He stands at 6 feet tall, and you also, again, have the option to have him sitting or standing, which is just so cool. Overall, I have to say this is probably one of the best skeleton props we've ever gotten from Home Depot, if not the best skeleton prop, and probably my favorite skeleton animatronic of all time. This guy is fantastic. Here is the 7-foot Plague Doctor, retailing for $200. Not a bad price at all. Anyways, this is a pretty neat Plague Doctor. I think his costume is a standout, especially here. He's got a little satchel along with a belt, which is cool. His staff he's holding looks pretty awesome. I do like that skeletal bird-like figure he has on there, as well as the mask. And the hat, too, is also pretty cool. The lantern, the detailing here is great. The animation, he will turn his head from side to side and rock the staff back and forth. Now, for what I don't like about this guy, it's definitely the EL wires they put on him. It just makes this guy look cheap. I get they're trying to do something original here, but I think just a standard, very realistic looking Plague Doctor is more than enough to be a cool and awesome prop. The extra bit of lighting on this guy definitely is not appreciated, I have to say. I do not like how those EL wires look on him at all. It almost makes it look like he's from the future, which definitely does not fit well with the whole vibe this guy is trying to go for here. Other than that, I don't mind the light up eyes on this one. It's just those stupid EL wires they put on this thing that really bog it down for me. Other than that, I have to say this is a perfectly fine Plague Doctor. This is the Fear Valley Wolf, and what a gnarly looking animal for sure. I love this super zombified and super grotesque looking wolf here. Absolutely awesome. For this guy's animation, he will feature mouth movement as well as upper lip movement, revealing those sharp, nasty fangs he has. How cool is that? Overall, I have to say this is one of the coolest dog props we have ever seen. I know we just talked about the skeleton dog, and I know this guy is technically a wolf, but come on, it looks more dog-like in my opinion. Definitely more of a hellhound than a wolf. But honestly, I think this one is awesome regardless. It's $200, which is a bit steep in my opinion, but it really is such a cool prop. It's 5.5 feet wide, so it's still going to be pretty big. I'm guessing it's going to be around 3 to 4.5 feet tall. But in the end, I think this guy is just such a unique and honestly probably Home Depot's scariest prop this year. I would not want to be caught standing in front of this guy, especially when he's showing off those fangs. What an awesome zombified wolf animatronic. Here is the 7.5 foot tall Trickster Trio Stack Clown Animatronics. Now this is a pretty nifty and unique idea here for sure, even if the clowns themselves are pretty generic and goofy. Now this is cool because what you have here are basically 3 separate clown animatronics that can combine into one, which is such a cool concept that I hope we see more of in the future. I do like how you could stack them all up on each other. I think they certainly look cooler when they're all stacked up. I have a feeling most people are just going to use it that way, but I think it is really nice that they also give you the option to have them all be on their own as well. For the most part, I like this thing, I guess you could say. Though I'm not a big fan of these goofy clowns, but I think it's what they were definitely going for here more so than trying to be scary, so I guess I can't really blame them for that. While this is definitely not my thing, I think for only $200 you can't really go wrong with this one. The prices for Home Depot this year are just so fair, and I think $200 for, again, basically 3 animatronics that can combine into one is so cool. I think overall the Trickster Trio Stack, if you're a clown person, is definitely something you should be looking at. Well, here is by far the worst Home Depot animatronic from this year, being the Spellcasting Witch. And every year there's always one super cheap witch prop that just gets released for no reason whatsoever. Now, there is one unique thing about this one that I guess kind of makes it stand out from the previous just standing witches with only mouth animation from previous years, and that is, of course, the hand with the eye on it, which I think is honestly a pretty cool addition and just a cool idea for a prop. Maybe if this wasn't a super generic looking witch, this could have been a pretty cool prop, but no, it is, of course, a super generic looking witch. Anyways, I think besides mouth animation, she kind of has a reach motion a little bit too, which I guess is cool. But other than that, this thing just kind of sucks. Here is the 6.5 foot tall Soul Slasher Scarecrow for, get this, only $100. Home Depot has truly blown every other retailer out of the water in terms of when it comes to pricing. But anyways, I think this is a pretty neat looking Scarecrow here. His animation, he does that cool point. I think that is a really unique animation for sure. And he also has head movement, which is cool enough. I think for the design, it's pretty great here. I do like the big top hat he has, as well, of course, that super cool sickle. I think his face, the mouth is just a little bit too big. It kind of looks cartoony, but other than that, it's a pretty decent looking Scarecrow for sure. The clothing is, you know, good enough for a Scarecrow. I like how it's sort of tattered at the bottom, and the shoes are just fine. Really not much to say about those. Overall, I think for what you're getting here, $100 is so worth it for this guy. If you just want a simple Scarecrow animatronic that looks cool and has cool animation, this is definitely the one for you. $100, you cannot go wrong with this guy at all. I'm honestly shocked this thing's only $100. Typically, any prop that's over 6 feet tall is gonna be in the 150 to 200 range, sometimes even 300. For a $100 animatronic, this guy's cool, but he's also just a cool animatronic in general. Our next prop is one that people already have, because this one was already released for halfway to Halloween, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. This is the 12.5 foot tall Inferno Deadwood Skeleton. I have to say, as far as the 12 foot props go, this is basically a semi-reskin of the 12 foot Inferno Pumpkin Reaper. And I have to say, I think this one's honestly better. The lighting is way cooler on this one, and the whole tree aesthetic is more unique than the jack-o'-lantern / pumpkin one, even though I do like the jack-o'-lanterns better. I have to say this is just overall better executed than the pumpkin one was. I don't think the pumpkin one should have been a skeleton, personally. Anyways, as for this guy, the lighting is just insane on this one. I absolutely love it. I like how it's kind of supposed to be flames bursting out of the top of his head. And I just have to say the whole darkened, almost black looking roots, vines he has as a body just looks awesome as well. It contrasts really nicely with the coloring. Other than that, I can't really say too much because people already have this guy, so there's really no need to dwell on it. Like and subscribe. Also, here is the 8.5 foot tall Knight Dollahan animatronic, retailing at $380. Now, this is Home Depot's most expensive item of the year, I believe, but I think it's kind of warranted. $380 is very steep, but if you want an absolutely massive horse riding animatronic with an actual horse that's standing seemingly on its own, the structure is built into the skeleton horse, which I think is just awesome how they pulled that off. And this thing is actually animated, which took me for a surprise. I think the $380 is honestly worth it. It's up for you to decide, but anyways, I think this guy is awesome. The animation here is pretty cool. Obviously, I love how the mouth on the skeleton head actually moves, but I don't like how he moves his head back and forth. He kind of moves the head into a weird position when he moves it. I would have preferred if it was just the mouth movement there, and maybe the horse kicked its legs, which I know would be very hard to pull off, but that would still be awesome. The horse's head also moves slightly, which is cool too. As for the design here, this is just awesome. Let's be honest. I love this skeleton horse so much. This blackened skeleton horse looking menacing as all hell with those red glowing eyes. And as for the rider himself, I think the skeleton design is pretty cool, and I also like the sort of red cloak he is wearing. Awesome stuff there. The Knight Dollahan is awesome and is sure to be a spectacle if you use him in your yard display this year. Here is the 3 foot version of the Inferno Pumpkin Skeleton, which of course was originally 12 feet tall. Obviously, last year they did this with Skelly, the 12-foot skeleton, shrunk him down to 3 feet, which I happily own and is displayed in my room. But regardless, I think this is a welcome addition to the shrinking of the 12-foot props. I think this is more of a novelty than a real Halloween decoration, but it's still cool regardless, and I like how the chest on this one even lights up. That's a cool detail for sure. I hope I could get this one too, because it will surely complement my 3-foot Skelly nicely. Now, I don't know if they'll shrink down any more 12-foot characters into 3-foot ones here. I feel like Skelly and this guy are kind of the two they put together and bring back every year. I can't really see them doing this with the witch or the werewolf, though. That would be pretty cool. So I think this might be it for the shrinking of the 12-foots, but if it's not, I definitely welcome it. Anyways, this guy retails for $40, which I think is a little steep for a non-animated 3-foot item, but again, you're kind of paying for the novelty here, which I guess is cool enough. Anyways, I really hope to get this guy, and he's cool. Next up is the Murderous Maple, and out of all the statics at Home Depot this year, this one is without a doubt my favorite. I absolutely love this thing. Clocking in at 9 feet tall and retailing for $250, the Murderous Maple is one behemoth. I think $250 is definitely a big asking price considering this thing is a static, But looking at this piece, the quality seems to be unmatched. This seems like a solid plastic thing all the way around, which I think is cool. And again, you're going to get some great quality with this piece right here. In terms of the detailings, this face is absolutely badass. I love how the face looks, especially on this one. It is super classic Halloween, super menacing as well. I think the branch arms he has are also pretty cool, and just everything about this guy's design just screams classic Halloween, and just one of the best non-animated tree props we have ever seen. Honestly, it beats out some of the animated tree props in my opinion. If not, it beats out all of them, just because of how much I love the face, and I think the quality here again is just going to be unmatched on this piece. So overall, the Murderous Maple is awesome. Our next item is the 7.5 foot tall jack-o'-lantern archway, clocking in at $200. I think this is easily the best archway that has ever been made, just ever. Obviously, I have some bias. I am the pixelated pumpkin, and this is just a jack-o'-lantern extravaganza here, but the amount of detail put into this one is astonishing. I'm pretty sure every single jack-o'-lantern face on this archway is unique, which is just so cool and just shows the dedication Home Depot has to giving us unique and very detailed props. And as for those jack-o'-lantern faces, each one is awesome in my opinion. There's not one bad one on here for sure. Each jack-o'-lantern is traditional yet unique at the same time, and it just comes together to make, again, the coolest archway in my opinion. I definitely can't wait to see this one in stores this year and walk through it. Here we have another prop that was released with the halfway to Halloween drop, so I'll talk about this one quickly, but this is the Frankenstein's monster servo animatronic. I have to say, this one is so faithful to that original Frankenstein movie, and I absolutely love how this one looks. It is so lifelike, and honestly, just a classic Halloween monster you cannot go wrong with. This is definitely the best Frankenstein Halloween animatronic we've ever seen. I don't think any of them have gotten this accurate to that original movie, plus there's no way they've gotten this lifelike. This one is probably the most lifelike prop you could own, especially with those blinking eyes. Once again, I absolutely love these props that utilize the servos. You cannot go wrong with them. Anyways, I think this is a great Frankenstein's monster animatronic, and he is just honestly incredible. Now here is, in my opinion, the best 12-foot animatronic of all time, being the giant-sized levitating Reaper. And only for $300, that's right, this guy is going for the price of the 12-foot skeleton. You can't go wrong with this one at all. I mean, this thing is just jaw-dropping. Look at that detail on the face, hands, and chest, and of course that massive scythe as well. So much detail is packed into this thing, along with animations such as servo movements in the head and mouth movement. I mean, seriously, how are they getting away with charging $300 for this thing? I know that's expensive, but for a 12-footer, with this much animation, that has never been heard of before. I absolutely think every part about this animatronic is perfect though. It is without a doubt my favorite 12-footer of all time. Plus, there are a ton of color changing options for the lighting here, which is so cool. But if I get him, I'm going to have to go with that red, of course. That menacing looking red color is so cool. Overall, I think this is Home Depot's best offering this year. It's just truly the best 12-foot prop of all time. I mean, seriously, this is just incredible. I cannot say it enough. There's so much detail packed in, plus a lot of animation for a 12-foot prop, and the lighting is outstanding on this one. And I think for $300, that's a very fair price for this one, and honestly I'd go as far as to say it's a steal for this guy. Here we have the 2.5-foot giant LED oozing cauldron, and as far as cauldrons go, this thing is pretty good. For $100, you're getting a pretty gigantic cauldron with some great detailing and really cool lighting, plus audio, which is a nice surprise. I think this is honestly probably the best cauldron Home Depot has released. They've released one or two over the past 3 years, I want to say, and I think they've been alright, but this one is for sure a standout. Here is the last licensed prop we'll be looking at in this video, and it is of course Zero from A Nightmare Before Christmas. Now I think a Zero animatronic is a really cool idea. This guy clocks in at 3 feet and $100, so I think it's a little bit pricey, but it looks like the detail here is really good, and it looks like Zero himself is going to be quite large. I'm not sure what the animation is. If you see a video on screen right now, it's just because when I'm filming this, Home Depot hasn't sent out all the videos for the props yet. Obviously, if you see a video, you know what he's doing, but if not, and it's just a picture, I can guarantee you his ears will probably move. It kind of looks like the way they're attached and how they don't light up as well. It looks like they might move back and forth, and it is possible that Zero himself, like the body of the prop, will kind of have like a sort of rotating back to forth motion to make it look like he's slightly levitating in the air. Overall, I think this is a pretty unique prop, all things considered, and I think Zero is a cool character to turn into an animated prop. Last and maybe least, we have Carnival Carl. Now, this guy stands at 8.5 feet tall, which is crazy, and retails for $200. So I think this is a good prop if you want a big clown, because this guy is certainly enormous. And for only $200, again, that's a pretty fair price for this guy. I don't think he's terrible. I just think he's a very, very generic clown. Despite his enormous size, like absolutely massive size, I really don't think he's all that special. I think the face here is just kind of derpy looking, though the part of me does like it a little bit. And his animation as well is really just kind of the same old, same old. At least he does lift the hammer up and down. I have to say the color scheme and clothing design here looks eerily similar to Cotton Candy Dan at Spirit Halloween. And speaking of Spirit Halloween, Carnival Carl, I think he would fare much better at the Spirit Halloween Carnival. Anyways, as far as clown props go, I guess this one is a tiny bit unique with how huge it is, but other than that, it's just another generic goofy clown. Well, everyone, I guess that is it for Home Depot Halloween 2024. They certainly released a lot this year, and I had a blast talking about all of it. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let me know which is your favorite in the comments below, and tell me your opinions on the overall quality of the lineup this year. I think Home Depot had a very, very solid year this year. I don't know if it's good as last year. I think it's probably about the same, to be honest, but there was a ton of good stuff this year for sure. Anyways, everybody, that's going to do it for me in this video. Be sure to like and subscribe once again, and remember, nobody outpixelates the pumpkin.